Hello, thank you for joining me today. My name is Kim Heffernan, and I am a financial advisor with Northwest Financial Advisors. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of Northwest Federal Credit Union, and we offer comprehensive financial planning and investment management services. Welcome to our presentation today of Women and Financial Planning, 4 steps to take charge of your financial future. Before we get started, please note that the information contained in this presentation is for educational purposes only. It's not intended to be a substitute for specific individualized advice. We do recommend that you consult with an advisor for guidance specific to your unique situation. So today we're going to go through a brief introduction to financial planning and then focus on some of the unique challenges that we as women can potentially face, along with solutions and some ideas to consider for the future. So I mentioned that kind of our tagline or our kind of what we do is that it's comprehensive financial planning and investment management. And what that means can vary greatly from company to company, even just advisor to advisor. Really where we're coming from is a goals-based approach. So we're wanting to look at where you are right now, and in an ideal world, where would you like to be? So what's most important to you, and how we can use your position to help you to retire one day, or save for college expenses, or purchase a home. And that's going to differ from person to person, right? So that's why we want to talk about you. So we're looking at your cash flows. We're looking at what's coming in, what's going out, what does that look like, and is it going to retirement savings, or to a 529, or to debt payments for student loans, mortgage, car loans. With these assets that we have money going to, what are they, right? Are they TSP or 401k or other investment accounts? And are those accounts allocated correctly from an asset management standpoint? So based on your goals and the level of risk that you're comfortable with or that you're willing to take with that money. Also under that risk management category, we're also looking at insurance needs. Do we have enough life insurance? Do we have too much life insurance? Might we need long-term care insurance or some sort of umbrella policy to ensure that we have that protection for our family? Always in the back of our minds, are we making decisions in a tax-efficient manner? Or are there some things that we can do to be more tax-efficient, both now in our current position, but also at some point when we get to that distribution phase, when we start taking money out, whether that's during retirement or some other time, are we being tax efficient with those distributions, but also are we managing what those distributions look like? Finally then, looking at estate planning, kind of that other side of the protection idea. Do we have beneficiaries that are up to date? Do we have a will? Do we have a trust? All of these conversations are things that we're wanting to consider at any point in our life, but also especially if we're going through changes, no matter how big or small, whether it's a new job, changes in our family life. We want to consider how our plan could be affected going forward. As we move through life, as we move through these things, we might have new goals that come about, or we're going to be in a new situation now. We also want to acknowledge that there are some challenges specific to changes that women could be going through that can alter our plan, and how do we want to approach that and approach planning for that in the future. So starting off with our first potential challenge is that life expectancy. On average, women simply tend to have longer lifespans. Right, so here we're looking at, if you are age 65, the probability of living to 85, 90, 95, or 100 years old. So a healthy 65-year-old woman has a 54% chance of reaching age 90 versus just 43% for a 65-year-old man. We're also considering if we have longevity in our family line, and what those implications might have for us, whether it's parents, siblings, aunts, uncles. So because of this, we generally need or want to plan for a longer retirement period. That means that our savings is going to need to last longer so that we don't run out of money, or we don't spend it and outlive what we've spent our career saving for, right? We could also potentially have higher lifetime medical expenses or need long-term care insurance to avoid draining those assets too quickly. This could also mean we have a higher likelihood of being left to manage our own finances at some point in our life if we're not already the individual that takes care of that in our family. So just considering how that could change the kind of big picture trajectory of our plan and what that means for us individually. Next, we have the wage gap. So although wages are rising, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, on average, the gender pay gap sits around 80% still, or 82 cents for every dollar. So if we're thinking about this in terms of a planning perspective or retirement savings, we might not be able to put as much away in our 401k plans or our other savings accounts and maintain the same quality of life as someone that's earning higher wages. So we're already needing to plan for a longer lifespan. Those things don't go together so well, right? Lower wages can also amount potentially to a lower amount of employer-provided life insurance. So if you are receiving multiples of your salary, is there additional coverage that we might need to provide to have the same level of protection to your family? As of 2021, only 47% of women have life insurance, compared to about 11% more of it, 58% of men. And men's life insurance policies are on average almost two times that amount. So that might not make sense for your family, right? So we want to check in. We want to make sure that we have the right sort of protection, no matter what, to make us feel comfortable. In addition, aside from just the differences in salary, there could also be potential shifts from full-time to part-time work, career changes. All these things also impact, one, our ability to save for financial goals, but also if we are going to be eligible for a pension that we pay into over our career, or Social Security payments. And that goes for everyone, right? But how does these changes in income affect the savings, but also our future benefits? Building on that a little bit, we're going to move into changes in family life. We always want to prepare and consider what the effects of marriage, divorce, growing family, death of a spouse, any of these big life changes have on our finances as well. If we are combining finances in a marriage or in a partnership, what is that going to look like in terms of our day-to-day expenses? How does this affect our income taxes now that we might be married filing jointly instead of a single tax filer? Are we now planning for these goals together versus separately, or are there things that we're still considering as separate entities or separate goals within our household? Also considering if we do plan to grow the family, what costs are associated with that, both naturally or taking other avenues, and are these new financial goals that we need to set? Is that something that we need to build and work towards? And on the other end of it, will this take either us or our spouse out of work for a period of time? What are the pros and cons that we're weighing for that situation? Situation does arise where divorce is on the table. What is that going to look like for us? Women do tend to experience the brunt of financial damage in a divorce, particularly if they had time taken off of work to care for family members, parents, children. Similarly, thinking to when we're combining finances, what changes are there now that we're separating, right? Are we still going to be able to stay on track to help to reach those goals? We also always want to be prepared for the worst, right? We want to be prepared in the event of the death of a spouse, particularly if you are not the person that primarily takes care of the finances in the household. Understanding, at least at a high level, what would need to occur going forward, and that goes for both separation, divorce, and in the event of a spouse passing. Diving deeper into caregiving a little bit, this is our last challenge that we are going to touch on today. But women are more likely to push pause on their careers to care for children or other family members. More than 2 in 5 women either give up or consider giving up their jobs at some point in time to raise a family. 62% of women provide more than 20 hours of care per week, either to children or aging parents or both, right? So if you are no longer able to provide that care or something happens to you, who provides it now and at what cost, right? So going back to taking time out of work from an income standpoint, but also what happens if you can't do it anymore. We first have to consider if this is even something that's feasible for your family from an income standpoint, but also for those long-term savings goals and what are the cost alternatives there for dollar amount cost, but also opportunity cost. So putting these potential challenges into perspective, we also consider that according to Fidelity, only 20% of women that they surveyed said that they felt sufficiently prepared by their parents to manage their finances as an adult. So on top of all of these other things that we might be dealing with, now what can we turn to? What steps can we take to feel more confident, to feel more secure in preparing for our financial future? Number one is to understand where you are right now. So what do I or we own? What or who do we owe? What and who do we owe? What are the purpose? What is the purpose of these assets or these liabilities? What are those things doing for us from a financial standpoint? So do we own residences or properties? Are there vehicles that are paid off or on lease? In banking accounts, do we have checking accounts, savings accounts, money markets, CDs? Where are these accounts held, and are they jointly owned or are there things that we own individually? Do we have investments in 401ks, traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs? Do we have an HSA account or like a brokerage non-retirement account or a college savings plan in a 529? Where are they held and who owns them? But also, what are they invested in? On the liability side, do we have mortgages or car loans or student loans? Who holds them? Where do those payments need to go to? Are there credit cards? Do we have credit cards that carry balances, or are we paying them off each month? Do we have any other loans, like personal loans or equity that we've accessed in properties through HELOCs or home equity loans? Did we take any distributions from 401ks or TSPs that we have loans that we're paying back through those plans as well? So especially with liability payments, are these things in my name? Are they jointly owned? Are they solely owned by myself or a spouse or another family member? Am I personally building credit history as the primary holder on any of these loan options, right? We don't want something to happen to a parent or to a spouse who solely owned a majority of these things, or solely was sole lender on a majority of these things, to not have been building this personal credit for all those years either. We also want to understand what our cash flows look like, going back to that wheel at the beginning, and have an idea of a budget. So on average, are we breaking even? Do we have savings going towards certain things that we're working towards? What does that look like? Because that's how we're building our wealth, right? So once we know where we are currently, we then want to move into identifying our specific needs through goal setting. So when we're thinking short term, we have the emergency fund. The emergency fund is an essential, non-negotiable short-term goal. We want to have a certain amount of cash available so that that can be accessed if needed to avoid putting costs on credit cards if something breaks or happens or something like that, or to help buffer any time out of the workforce, whether that's elected or non-elected, so that we have flexible cash available. We usually want this to be between 3 and 6 months of expenses, depending on our personal family needs, but generally somewhere in that range is at least a good starting point. Then anything that we are considering to purchase less than probably a year and a half or 2 years from now, what does our savings for that look like? Do we have specific accounts going towards that? Do we have a dollar amount per paycheck that's going to help us reach that goal? Is it earning interest? What does that look like for our short-term trajectory? Midterm then would be purchases in the next 2 to 10 years or so. So this may be a new car or college savings for kids in elementary school or high school, a new home, a vacation home. And anything longer than that, really anything more than 10 years or so from now, really looking out towards retirement, college savings for younger kids, or other larger purchases like homes or vacation homes and things like that as well. So what are we working towards for our ideal future? Then while we're building these assets and setting these goals, do we have adequate protection for what we're working towards, right? Is there a need for life insurance or additional insurance? Do we have up-to-date beneficiaries on anything that has a dollar sign? So banking accounts, investment accounts, anything else that we own. If we don't have a will, we absolutely need to do that and make sure it's up to date, as well as considering if our family might need a trust. So if you are eligible for a pension, what do the survivor benefits look like, and what does that mean in terms of protecting the beneficiaries and protecting our family if something were to happen to us? So once we have identified what our needs are, what our goals are going to be, we then want to put a strategy together on how we are going to get there, right? So we're discussing different account types, we have different pots of money, and we want to ensure that our money is working for us the best that it can be. So for this emergency fund and for these shorter term goals, we want to consider banking products. We want to consider high yield savings, CDs, money market accounts, so that it is growing at some rate. It has a interest rate that you're at least getting paid on having that money there. But once we get out to the midterm and the long-term goals, that's when we want to consider investments. That's going to allow us to make sure that this money that we are working hard to set aside has continued potential to grow. So we want to be diversified across all aspects of our plan so that we have all these different pots of money working for you towards that future and towards what those goals are for you. So lastly, number 4 here, the best way to foster this success in your financial future is to create a plan with those strategies and a schedule to implement. So speaking with an advisor and a trusted advisor to help build this plan allows for flexibility. So as your career and as your family obligations shift, staying proactive can help you to stick to this plan. And even with the setbacks that we went through. So some of these things are unavoidable aspects of life, but once we have an awareness of them, we can hedge against them or plan for them or plan around them so that they won't necessarily have a detrimental impact on you and your finances. We also want to consider that roughly 70% of U.S. households are controlled by baby boomers right now. And according to McKinsey & Company, women in the U.S. are set to inherit an estimated $30 trillion from aging parents or spouses by 2030, and that is not very far away. So if we don't feel like we're prepared to deal with that or work that into our financial situation, a good advisor is always there to be a resource for you. We're not only creating the plan, but we're also there to help problem solve along the way as these things come along. So even if you don't feel like you're necessarily in a place to speak with someone right now, it's always a good idea to check in, and particularly the earlier the better, to make sure that there's nothing being missed and that you can be as successful as possible and whatever that looks like for you. So we do offer complimentary consultations. That's available to anyone that is interested to get that conversation started. You are able to request that through the survey link at the end of the presentation. We also have our website and email address shown here if you prefer to reach out directly to myself. Thank you for watching today, and I hope to be of service to you in the future. Thank you.